IVM.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Sponge Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about Chapter 20, A Giant Learns to Dance. I am with Ambi Parmeshwaran as always to talk about his book Sponge, Leadership Lessons I Learned from My Clients. Hi Ambi.
Hi, good to be back.
Yes, good to have you back. This is a interesting chapter because a lot of your chapters have a lot of different companies that you're generally talking about in the course of a chapter. But over here, we're kind of diving in deeply into one particular company's one particular problem, which was TCS and some of the challenges they faced around branding and some of the challenges they faced around their business model as such.
Yeah, so this entire chapter is about the client relationships I had over 15 years with TCS, and how when we started working with the client, it was a division of Tata Sons, and then later it got listed, and today is a jewel on the crown of probably Tata as well as the Indian stock market.
Right.
So this is the whole journey. I've not traced the whole thing, but I've explained the background to what happened and what are the.
So can you tell people a little bit about the name itself, right? Tata Consultancy Services versus TCS versus some new unseen name as yet. But what's the history behind that?
TCS or Tata Consultancy Services actually started as a division of Tata Sons, right? It was just a division. It didn't even have a limited name.
Right.
Mr. F.C. Kohli was the first director. What they had a title called a director in charge. So Mr. Kohli was the director in charge of TCS. He retired, I think, in the year 1995 or 96. And then Mr. Ramadurai, who had started working in the company on day one, took over as the CEO. During that time, people may not know, Infosys had a very troubled beginning. I think the first 10 years, Infosys was...
they were always struggling.
And even their IPO did not go through. It had to be bailed out. But by the time we started working with TCS closely around the late 90s, Infosys had got its act together. Infosys was firing in all cylinders. Infosys had a great PR act going. They were the darling of the stock market. They got written about every quarter. Their leaders were profiled in media. Compared to that, TCS was very much behind the shadows of Tata Sons. So there was big debate, I think, those days that, will TCS be able to continue to be the number one IT service company in India, and I was I was actually an observer in some of these discussions saying, can a name like TCS continue? Isn't Tata too closely associated with products like steel and chemicals and salt? Can they even carry something like IT consulting? Whereas the real cool names were Infosys, Accenture, these were really cool names. IBM, these were really cool names for IT services. Can TCS even continue? The other thing was, consultancy is a very odd, quaint British word.
Yes.
Why should we call ourselves consultancy? Should we call ourselves consulting? And the third issue used to be, why are we calling it services? Services is actually a low end, where you get paid $15 per hour.
There was a debate over the word consultancy versus consulting.
Yes, there was.
Really? Okay.
Consulting was seen as a more cooler word, whereas consultancy was seen as a very old, archaic word.
Okay, all right.
Right. And services, again, is a very poor term.
Okay.
Right? And so, so the question was, should the company think of changing its name? Should you go and look at a nice, cool new name, like the way Accenture was called?
Right.
So should there be a new name? But, amidst all this, I remember Mr. Ramadurai turning around and saying, no, I think we are Tata. We cannot take it out. That's our strength.
Right.
It may be, people may think it's not cool, but we are Tata. We will stay as Tata. And we are a services company. We can't drop services. So with a very cool head, he said, no, we will continue this way. but we'll continue to do a good job, and we will continue to deliver results for our clients,
Right.
and transform ourselves into what then was called, body shopping, into what they called the whole term called global delivery model.
Correct.
Was invented by TCS that point of time.
Right.
And interestingly, they were actually Infosys was biting at their heels, and I'm told one particular quarter, Infosys actually had numbers which were better than their numbers.
Okay.
This was before they went public, so internally they were
They were aware.
they were aware that. But then things changed. IPO happened on 25th August 2004. It got oversubscribed by I think a factor of 6 times or something.
Right.
And when the issue opened, when the stock got listed, it had a listing gain of 26%. So
Okay.
it has done well. It has done brilliantly well. And as some readers may remember, in August 2018, TCS became the first Indian stock to cross a market cap of $100 billion.
Right.
Right. That was on April 23rd. And interestingly, on that day, the market cap of the other 3 big IT companies in India put together was less than what TCS had managed to achieve. So can you imagine? I mean, just as, this is talking of 2018,
Right.
as recently as 15 years or 14 years prior to this, people were saying, when is
Infosys going to take them over?
Yeah, when is Infosys going to overtake TCS, And now you got this company, which is like a giant, and TCS and all the other companies look like, smaller players.
Right.
But all this called for a tremendous amount of transformation in the company,
Yeah,
right?
I'd like to kind of bring you to that, right? The transformation stuff. You mentioned the idea that they moved from this outsourcing model or body shopping model into the global delivery network, right? And during the course, you were mentioning how they transformed in that sense, right? And you mentioned this idea that transformation is not an event but a process. Can you talk about that a little bit in this context? In terms
Yeah,
of
so when and you see that happening, right? When a new CEO takes over a company, he says, "I'm going to transform this company." So the first thing he does is he tries to create a new logo. He puts a new logo out. He puts a big campaign out, and he creates a new theme and a new song, and they all jump up and down. That's could look like transformation, but
Right.
that's not transformation. Transformation has to be from inside.
Right.
Transformation has to be from the skills you build, by the processes you put in place, by changes you make internally.
Right.
And so therefore, I that's what I think I've written there, that transformation is not an event. Transformation is a process.
Right.
A lot of CEOs tend to mistake transformation to an event. And you can have an event, but if you only leave it to an event, you're going to fall, very badly on
Right.
your face. So from Mr. Kohli, who created a new company, to Mr. Ramadurai, who transformed it to 1 degree, and then later to Chandra, who kind of continued the transformation journey, and now with Rajesh continuing it further, I think they are firing on all cylinders. People are saying, with AI and ML, why do you need people, etc. No, sorry, they've reinvented their business.
No, you need people to manage the AI and ML.
And then they've digitized the whole company. They've retrained thousands of people to work on cutting edge technology. So it's no longer, guys sitting and doing dumb coding. I mean, they're doing a lot of more interesting and innovative stuff.
I think,
and you know about that.
Yeah, I think that's part of what they did, right? Which really kind of made TCS such an amazing story at the time, right? Because you're right. I mean, I remember I was in that field at that point in time. And in the mid-90s, you're right, Infosys was a much sexier bet than Tata was in that sense, right? But then I had the good fortune to meet Mr. Ramadurai at a wedding as well. And he didn't know anybody over there, and I was the IT guy, so they chitcowed me to him. And so, but I mean, when I was talking to him about that, he was mentioning the idea, the fact, some of these ideas, right? That it is not about just body shopping anymore. It's about how do we create a larger thing? How do we become so integral to our customers that they cannot go anywhere without us?
Exactly. So it's no longer about selling it on so many dollars per hour. It's on selling on value. What value are you getting out of this project? So, which is, I mean, great job done, and I think it's a great story there. And Mr. Ramadurai has written this in his own book. TCS and beyond. And I think, fact is that today, if India's image in the world has changed somewhat, it's largely due to the IT people.
Yep.
They are the real ambassadors of India. So earlier it used to be, you're Indian, so you'll run a 911 or you'll run a motel.
Yeah.
Not anymore. Now you say, I'm from India, so do you know computer programming?
Yes.
Blah, blah, blah. So
No, that's absolutely true.
So you're no longer a land which exports taxi drivers to the US.
And you're now the land that exports IT services.
Yes, I think there was a fabulous program in 60 Minutes.
Okay.
Which talked about what do we import in the US? What do we import from France? We import cheese.
Okay.
What do we import from Scotland? We import
Scotch.
What do we import from Switzerland? We import
Chocolate.
Chocolate. Right?
Yeah.
What do we import from India? People. Smart people. Right? And a lot of these smart people are IT engineers.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that the industry, has done a great job in transforming the image of India. And I think hats off to people like, Mr. Kohli, Ramadurai, Chandra, and the whole team at TCS.
Absolutely. So, I'm going to take a little bit of a turn right now. I just before we end, I want to ask you about one particular thing that kind of hit me while I was reading this chapter. You mentioned that you did a campaign for the TCS at the time, which was around the idea of kind of pushing this new narrative forward. And you said that the campaign did very well from a word-of-mouth perspective, from an anecdotal perspective, all of that across the board. But you said it had a tremendous impact internally.
Yeah, a lot of times big corporate campaigns, and especially in large companies who employ thousands of people, the first sign of the effect of the campaign is if your people are walking a few inches taller.
Right.
So when we did the big IPO campaign for TCS, about how TCS, India, IT put India on the world map.
Right.
Who put IT on India's map? TCS was one of the ads.
Right.
It made all the TCS guys feel very proud. And I know anecdotally, a lot of people said, we should have done it earlier, but now it's great. We're doing it.
Right.
We are the guys who created the IT industry, and now we are really planting this flag. And everyone is feeling very proud. And it works great on morale. You can't do the campaign only for internal people.
Right.
But, whatever you do externally, you always have to keep an eye that is it working internally?
True.
It'll probably start working internally before it works externally.
So it's actually, I think that's kind of interesting because you look at a lot of what the tech companies are doing today, right? When you look at Facebook and Twitter and their advertising around particularly issues of trolling, abuse, privacy, etc., etc. From what I see, most of it is directed internally because external people already have made up their mind more or less, right? But the internal people are people who you can still bring on board. Microsoft did something similar about 5 years ago where they did some ads around the Google search man stealing your information. And that ad played horribly outside, but internally everybody loved it.
Yeah, so, it's a very expensive way of reaching your internal audience.
It is.
But obviously when you put something out to the external audience, the internal audience therefore believe that, the company is serious about it.
Yeah.
Right? It's not some internal newsletter which,
It's a declaration of intent.
So it's a very, you're planting your flag. That will work. It always works with the internal audience. Yeah.
That's great. So I think we'll be back next week with our next chapter, chapter 21, Failing to Try versus Failing.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Anupam Gupta. I'm B50 on Twitter. I am the host of Paisa Vaisa, the show that talks money. On my show, I speak to experts from every field of money and finance, from stock markets, equities, debt funds, credit cards, life insurance, every possible area of money and finance that you can think of. We even did an episode on cryptocurrency. I've got fantastic guests from mutual funds to personal finance experts everywhere. Robo-advisory, startups, just name it, we've got it. At Paisa Vaisa, we help you make smart decisions about money. You work hard for money. Now make your money work hard for you. New episodes out every Monday, and you can listen to my show on the IVM Podcast app or any other podcasting app that you have.
Hey, this is Shridaditya.
And I'm Amit Doshi.
And we host Shunya One.
It's a really fun podcast where we talk to some of the best entrepreneurs in the country.
Yes, talking about everything from their startup challenges to what they're building and all the future of technology right here.
So catch us on the IVM Podcast website, app, or wherever you listen to your podcast from.